So you could say, as people do, well, it's good or bad events in life that gives us a positive or negative attitude about it. Well, research shows that this is not the case. In a wide scale study of lottery winners, and most people would say, oh, that's a good thing, win the lottery, and those having an accident that leads to becoming paraplegic or quadriplegic, most people would say that's a bad thing. The reports of subjective well being are surprisingly similar between these groups in returning to their pre event life satisfaction within a year from their life changing event. So, in other words, a year later, whether you won the lottery or whether you had a crippling accident, how satisfied you were with your life was about the same as it was before that event. Social scientists coined this term the hedonic or satisfaction treadmill to describe how people's attitudes revert to a familiar level, regardless of the so-called positive or negative life events. We can just keep trudging along with the same attitudes and interpreting life in the same way. So, what changes our general attitude toward life is a higher level of engagement and participation in living our purpose through alignment with our inner source. I am also a co creator of not just my attitude towards life, but also the circumstances which I attract to reinforce these attitudes. This becomes more normal to your consciousness the more you practice it. So, in other words, you're going to attract events which will reinforce your belief system. It's not magical thinking, but it's alignment and identification with the source of life. So, what serves as one of the greatest obstacles to our moving forward with confidence in life is what we drag along that slows it, if not totally waylays our fulfilling journey. Forgive yourself and others, for yesterday has already been lived. That's what Yahshua meant by the dead. Be here now and face the path in front of you. That is where life is. Regard the present moment, as in this you'll find answers to many problems that have baffled you. Respect life in all its ways of unfolding of experience. Life is not behind you, it's in front of you. It's not history or a memory. Life is that which is birthing before your very eyes. Know that, and your intelligence will become a dynamic force rather than a stagnating body of knowledge with formulas for moral structure. Guilt and shame turn out to be two of our favorite burdens we take on as humans to cloud the brilliance of our heart and the joy of living our purpose. How can I trust myself when I've done this or that or the other terrible thing in the past, we say to ourselves. Or, I never have been good enough to deserve having my heart's desire in life. These are self-judgments that become great excuses for not engaging in life wholeheartedly. They are the instruments of fear that keep us small and purport to protect us from further guilt or shame. As Reverend Ike, the preacher of affirmative thinking, used to say, ain't nothing so bad as a good excuse. There's actually a natural guilt we share with the animal world. That is the uncomfortable feeling that we get when our actions might harm someone we care about. It prompts me to seek how to care for you if I accidentally step on your foot and see that you're in pain. I might help get an ice bag if you're bruised, or take you to urgent care if perhaps a bone may be broken. Neurotic guilt, however, keeps me awake for weeks after berating myself and how clumsy I am. That serves neither you or me. Wallowing in shameful self-judgment does not save the world from my unworthy, despicable presence. It actually deprives the world of my loving engagement. The error is to assign negative character to who I am for something I did. This negative character separates me from the truth of who I am rather than admitting I did something I don't like, but I've learned not to repeat it again. It's like telling a child, you're a bad person, you're a bad boy, you're a bad girl for spilling the milk, rather than I'm upset that you spilled the milk on our dinner table. And so I'm also going to learn not to fill your glass so full. And we can both learn how to quickly clean it up and have a good rest of the dinner. Okay? We serve nothing by continuing to tell ourselves how bad we are for all the milk we've spilled in our lives, or project that onto others, especially our children. The truth is that the love we are learns from every lesson we've had and has helped us become quite handy with a cleaning rag, literally and metaphorically. Some people call forgiveness the great erase. We might call it the great cleaning rag. Yeah? So let's do another written exercise to get a little emotional, spiritual cleaning going on for us. I'm going to ask you to take handout 2, Forgiveness and Release of the Past. Now, again, you can just take a piece of paper to do this or an electronic device. No one else is going to read what you're writing down but you, unless you choose to share it with someone else later. So, past actions. Now, this is guilt for something I've done. Guilt is about an action I've done. So, an A, I now forgive myself for believing I was. Now, this is a self-judgment for past actions. So I could say lazy, for having, and this is a past action, for not having worked harder in my voluntary position. And I've learned that I am more, this is a positive quality that I learned about this, I'm more balanced and productive than I was giving myself credit for. So now B is about a past action towards others. I now forgive myself for believing I was. This is a judgment of a self-act towards others. I was inconsiderate for not having put others' interests ahead of mine in my family business. That's an example for me. And I've learned that I'm more generous with my time, energy, and resources, again, than I had given myself credit for. And forgiveness now towards my actions in the world. C, I now forgive myself for believing I was selfish, for not having promoted a community event more. I was a guest speaker on a community event, and I could feel bad because I didn't promote that more. Now, what I have learned is that I am more supportive of my community's well-being than I gave myself credit for. So admit, I am supportive of my community's well-being and not hang on to, I should have done more. Second section is past self-evaluation. See, guilt is a negative feeling about something I did. Shame is negative feeling for the way I am. So A, I now forgive myself for believing I was essentially, this is a way of being that is not okay, that I was essentially not enough. And I now know that I am growing in being whole and complete. Okay. B, I now forgive myself for believing I was essentially, and this is a way of being not okay with others, self-centered socially. And now, with forgiveness, I'm growing in being socially conscious. And C, a way of being in the world. I now forgive myself for believing I was essentially afraid of being in the world. And I now know that I'm growing in being safe and open-hearted. Okay, so let's take time for you to complete this. We're going to take several minutes for this on handout 2. And again, I'm encouraging you to do this now rather than let your mind convince you to put it off till later. Keep breathing while you do it with a loving intention to clear past judgments about your actions, guilt, and ways of essentially being, shame. This can initiate a quite powerful healing in a short amount of time. Let's do this together now. Again, you can just take a piece of paper to do this or an electronic device. Okay, and bring yourself back to the video. So if you've not completed these exercises, you can do them later as long as you use them to release the past and embrace the love that you essentially are.